Hey y'all, today I am bringing you a video that is long overdue. It's going to be my top 10 books from the year 2020, aka the cursed year, aka the year we're not going to talk about, aka I feels like we're still in it. So, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Blake the Book Eater, and I review books and stuff on my channel. And if you want to follow my socials down below, you can follow me there for more updates on a lot of other content that I cannot share here. But yeah, go follow. So, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, etc. Okay, now let's get into the video. So first up, instead of getting into the top 10, I think I'm just gonna do some honorable mentions because there were a lot of great books that I read last year, honestly. And these are the ones that weren't necessarily in the top 10, but they were close enough, so here they are. So very brief honorable mentions. We have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I thought it was a very great introductory novel to the trilogy. The first half was wonderful. The second half was stressful. Lots of trigger warnings with this book, but if you can handle it, I think this one is worth the read. Next, we have Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This book was magical, beautiful, trans, queer, just magical, literally magical. This one's awesome. If you haven't read this one, please go read it. It deserves your time. And Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This book was a wild ride, super fun. I thought it was a perfect gateway book if you don't read a lot of adult fantasy and like maybe just read a lot of YA. This is a good one to kind of cross over to that audience, and it's just a damn good time. The only reason it's not included in my top 10 is because it ends on such a huge cliffhanger that I feel like wasn't resolved. So obviously I think this is going to be the perfect trilogy to binge. So if you can handle dealing with a massive cliffhanger, this is awesome. This is a great book. So the last book in my honorable mentions is These Brave Foolish Souls from the City of Swords by Benedict Patrick. Now, last year I got a Kindle Unlimited membership for a brief time, and it was wonderful. I read a lot of great books, and Benedict Patrick was one author that I read and I loved. His Yarns World series was phenomenal, and this was, I think, number 3 in that series. They're like standalone novels, kind of just told within the same magical world. So there are some crossovers here and there, but not too much. You can read any novel by themselves, and the City of Swords book was so good. We had just these kind of bravados, I think they were called. It's been a while since I've read it. But they were trying to prove themselves, and it was just this awesome, like, very almost like Musketeer-esque kind of story, with almost a Western feel at times, because it was like they were trying to save like the villagers, and there was like magic and fantasy, and some like evil dark goddesses. So it was just a great time. I loved it. I loved it so much. And so it's in my honorable mentions, but it's like right just edging the list of the top 10. So his works are fantastic. Go read Go read Yarns World. It's great. Self-publishing authors are awesome. Now to get into the top 10 proper. I couldn't number these. I can't put a number to them except for one. There's one that has a number, but if you know, you already know what that one is. But for all the other ones, they're all just so good, and I couldn't arbitrarily assign a number to them because these are the best books that I read last year. So it felt unfair to compete them with each other because they're all awesome and deserve celebration. So without further ado, here, in no particular order, are my top 10. So the first book in my top 10 is The Faceless Old Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your Home by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor. Now, if you've been on my channel, you've probably heard me mention this book before in like one of my wrap-ups, but this book is phenomenal. It is perfect, amazing, and I love it. It is set within the Night Vale universe, which if you don't know about Welcome to Night Vale, it is a podcast series, a fictional podcast series, and it's phenomenal. I highly suggest you go listen to it. But they also have started to publish, they also have the transcripts for all the podcast episodes, so if you're more a reader like I am, you can definitely go and read the podcast. But they've started publishing novels set within that world. And they're all standalone novels, so you don't need to have listened to the podcast or read any of the previous books. So with all that exposition, this book follows the faceless old woman who secretly lives in your home. She's a long-running character from the podcast. She haunts the denizens of Night Vale. And so this specific novel follows her haunting this man named Craig, who he's just a guy, and she is haunting him, and he can't see her. And so that's the kind of overarching like narrative, and then the rest of the story is told kind of in flashbacks, because she's telling Craig how she came to Night Vale, how she became the faceless old woman who secretly lives in your home, his home specifically. And this was just such a fun ride because number one, she's never named, so we only ever know her as the faceless old woman who secretly lives in your home. How many times am I gonna say that? I don't know. So we follow her as she grows up in this kind of Italian-esque, like on the Mediterranean countryside, and she seems to have a good life. And then things go wrong, and then she decides that she wants to get revenge. So this novel, I think, is almost comp to like something like The Count of Monte Cristo. It's a very, very well done because there are twists and turns, and it is surrealistic. I will it's not like supposed to be grounded historical fiction or anything like that. Like, there are made up countries, there are like just random things that happen, and it's all in stride, and it all fits the kind of humorous and dark humorous tone of Night Vale. And there was a lot of heart in this novel as well, I think. What I love about Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor's writing is that they evoke this sense of nostalgia and kind of loneliness in their prose. Like, they're able to pinpoint feelings so perfectly that a lot of us have, that it's hard to put names to sometimes, and I feel like their prose always does a great job of making me feel seen in a way that I don't know that any other prose really has. So yeah, I highly recommend just the Night Vale series as a whole, but The Faceless Woman Who Secretly Lives in Your Home is a phenomenal read, and I think everybody should go read it. Next, we have another book by Benedict Patrick. I mentioned him in my honorable mentions for those brave, foolish souls from the City of Swords, but this one, The Flight of the Darkstar Dragon, was just wow. It blew me away. It's just so unique and so cool. Basically, it's almost like I don't even know how to describe it. It's fantasy. So we follow this crew on this ship, and they somehow stumble through a portal, and they find themselves in this dimension where it's basically just like a giant ocean, an inverted ocean. So imagine a globe. They're on the inside of that globe, and at the center of that ocean is like a star, and it's surrounded by a dragon, a massive, massive continent-sized dragon that feeds on the energy of that sun. And so the crew is trying to figure out a way to escape this dimension. They might travel to other dimensions. Meanwhile, there is a dragon the size of like a planet who's trying to kill them. And this was just such a fun read. I loved it so much. It was very fast-paced. The adventure was awesome. The characters were great. And yeah, it was everything that I could have wanted in a book. And I know that, like, I don't know, I don't hear a lot about these types of books, mostly probably because they're self-published and he doesn't, he can't advertise a whole bunch, so I'm just going to yell at you guys to go read it because it was so good. And honestly, all of Benedict Patrick's works that I've read, I've loved. So he's an author, I think, that should get his due because the man can write. Next, I have Less by Andrew Sean Greer, and I'm currently loaning it to a friend, which is why I don't have my physical copy. But as a gay man, this book meant everything to me. It's probably one of the best books I think I've ever read, just because it captured, I think, what it means to be queer. Not like in such a huge blanket statement, and you know, queer can mean so many things to so many different people, but I think specifically as a queer man, you know, a lot of the times I read, you know, queer romances and they're written by women, which is great, which is fine, but because this book, like I could tell that a lot of this book and the experiences that the character Arthur Less goes through, it just felt so honest and authentic, and I was able to just see myself in a way that was just wow. So it follows Arthur Less, who is an author, and he is not a very successful author. But so his ex is getting married, and so what does he do? He decides to run away by accepting all of those random offers that have been piling up in his junk drawers and emails, and so he goes around the world. He goes on a globe-trotting trip to escape his feelings. And there was just so much raw honesty and beautifulness to this book that is just so hard to really describe or put into words. I was sobbing by the end of it just because it just touched me in such an honest, beautiful way. I keep saying that, but like it's a masterpiece, and I don't think I'll ever read another book like it. And if there are books like that, I want to read them. Next, we have a thriller from one of my favorite authors at the moment, that is Riley Sager. Out of all the books that I've read from him, this is probably like my second favorite of his, just because I loved what's it called? The Last Time I Lied. That one was phenomenal, and I don't think anything he could write could top that. I want him to, but this is really good too. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. But so Home Before Dark follows our protagonist, who she goes home, or she goes back to her childhood home, and it's very famously haunted. Her dad wrote a book about it. They had to flee when she was younger. Very kind of Haunting of Hill House-esque, if you have seen that show. And I could definitely tell the inspirations from that, but it never became too much. Now there is some spooky stuff going on, because she goes back, because she, you know, her dad left her the house, and yeah, I don't think I want to say more than that, other than that I really enjoyed it. It was a mystery. We had some thrills, we had some scares, we had some twists that honestly I didn't necessarily see coming, which was awesome. I love Riley Sager. I think does a really good job at throwing twists at me that I don't necessarily expect, but does it in a way that it feels earned. It doesn't feel like completely out of nowhere. So yeah, Home Before Dark was fun. Next, we have another self-published novel, and that is Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. This is a book that I also read on my Kindle Unlimited subscription, but I loved it so much I had to get a physical copy. I want to get physical copies of all the Yarns World books, but there's a lot of them, so soon, when I have money. This book was epic. It was... God, I want a movie of this so bad. I want a movie of this so badly. It follows basically these four heroes. I'm trying to... spoilers. I don't want to spoil things. I really don't. So this 8-year-old boy, Ian, or Ian, he... I'm trying not to spoil things. So he goes through the land and is finding these heroes that he wants to task with helping him to take down the emperor. And this book was just honestly flat out one of the best rides that I've had reading in the last year. It was so fun. It was so action packed. It was so crazy. We have like fantasy magic. We have like it's brutal. It's fun. This book is fun. Like, if you want just a fun read, wow, this gives it to you. And yeah, it's really short. It's like 250-ish pages, but it really packs a punch. Like, it does not overstay its welcome. It does exactly what it needs to do, and then it's like, okay, that's it, and you're like, I want more. And so actually, this is the first book in a series of standalone novels. So we are getting more in the Mortal Techniques, which is what the series is called. Book 2, I think, just came out. It's called Pawn's Gambit. Also looks really good. And I'm sad because I kind of want a sequel to this because this book was so awesome. But yeah, this book needs to be a movie. I want to watch it. I want to revel in all that awesome action and fight scenes because Rob J. Hayes can write action, and it's so good. It's so this book was go read this book. Go read this book. Next on the list, we have just, again, one of the most fun experiences I had reading last year, and it was The Rise of Kyoshi by F.C. Now this, if you didn't know, I love Avatar. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender so much, and this book just gave me everything that I needed, because like, I've read the comics and the comics are great. There's a review for that on my channel somewhere, but Kyoshi has always been one of my favorite avatars, just from like the snippets that we get from her in the show. But in this book, FCE takes what we know about Kyoshi, kind of turns it on its head, and does a lot of things that are unexpected. Lots of unexpected things, which I loved, because I'm a reader who does not like to expect things. So when the story begins, Kyoshi is not the Avatar. Avatar Yun is the Avatar. So we as the reader obviously know that there's been a mistake made. And so Kyoshi doesn't really realize that she is the one who has the power. And that just sets up a lot of very interesting dynamics. And yeah, I don't want to say too much, but this book is brutal. If you really wanted to know what bending could do to somebody in an actual fight, FCE delivers. He does not pull his punches, because, you know, if you have elements flying at you, we are a meat sack full of brittle bones. You think a rock is gonna just do an owie? No. So yeah, this book was just awesome. This one and its sequel I read over the course of a weekend. It's a duology, so there's only 2. As of now, I want more. But, you know, it is satisfying, but I would like more. Just because I just love the way that FCE writes. Like, and I would love to see an animated series based on these books, because they're just that good. Next, we have one of the most pleasant surprises of the year, and that is Smash It by Francina Simone. And yes, I do know Francina. However, that did not take away from how just awesome this book was, because I don't read YA contemporary or like contemporary romance like a lot / if ever. And so this is the first one that I've read in, like, I think literal years. And it was just so good, because I think a lot of the times what holds me back from like YA contemporaries is the ones that I have read, not saying that all are like this, but the ones that I have read, the characters don't feel like teenagers. They feel almost like idealistic versions of what teens should be, and Francina is not afraid to let her characters fuck up and be messy and act like teenagers, and that's what I loved about this. Liv is trying to come into her confidence, and so she makes a fuck it list of things that she just wants to say fuck it and do, and that helps her in some ways and hinders her in others, and that's all I'm going to say about that. There is just a triangle that's so well done. I haven't had my feels toyed with this much as a reader, like in a romantic, like shipping or anything, in like forever, because I felt like there was genuine love and connection, compassion on all sides, and I was just like, I don't know what I want to happen, because I feel like a lot of the times, like when I read books, I'm like, okay, this is the ship that's really obvious, and this is like the red herring for like the 5 people who want to go stand this person, and then everybody else is gonna love this ship. But in this book, I was just like, and that was wonderful, and I loved it, and I can't wait for the sequel. Okay, so the next book is The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And this book was just beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. The prose was just magical and lyrical, and the story was so heartbreaking. And, you know, obviously I am not Black, I cannot relate to those experiences, but I think there is kind of a universality to the characters in this book, where you can just empathize and understand what they're going through. And yes, this is historical fiction with magical realism elements tied into it, and the way that it was done was so just goddamn beautiful, because it felt like it almost could have happened. Like, if I didn't know anything about history and I read this, I would be like, this seems about right to me. And I know this is being made into a movie, and I think it's just going to be such an amazing movie. I will read anything that Coates writes. I will read a shopping list. I will read a novella, a short story. Like, you know when you start to read something for the first time and it feels like you've already read it and you've already fallen in love with it? That's what it felt like. It felt like reading like an old friend, or like coming home. Like, it was just, and this is a dark book, because it deals with slavery and a lot of the aspects around that. So there are, I would say, some very heavy content warnings for what's in this book, if not just like for what's on the page, but like for what's implied. But it was just really sad, because not the trigger, I mean, yeah, the stuff that happens in the trigger warnings is sad, but it's just, it deals with the generational trauma, I think, in a way that I don't think I've ever really seen done before. Because it just really impacts upon you how slavery wasn't just bad for like the individuals and what it was happening to, but how it tore families apart, and how like it was just it was so heartbreaking, so heartbreaking. But just like, yeah, I feel like this is a very like capital I guess important book. Like, this is a book that should be read in schools as like a classic, I think, opposed to some other classics that are, this is better than a lot of the stuff I had to read in school. I'm gonna just say that. And yeah, that's why I think you should go read this book. Everybody should go read this book. Your mom should go read this book. Your book club should pick this book. It's phenomenal. It's great. Go read it. And the next book is by a debut author who actually is a little bit younger than me, which is crazy to me, but she's killing the game out here, and that is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. Now, this book was just so much fun. It was so much fun. It is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920 Shanghai, and there's a monster in the river. And if that's not enough to get you to go pick up this book, then like, I question. I love the characters in this. Roma and Juliet were fantastic protagonists on two sides of the gang war. The supernatural element was really well done, but then also, I'm gonna just talk about Chloe's prose because it was awesome. Like, it felt like somebody who had been writing for years, and I think I said this in my wrap up, but like, I could not believe that this is a debut author. And I know she's probably written dozens of books that haven't been published, and I would love to see those. And I want to read everything else that she's going to write in the future, because she has so much talent. Like, the way that she just evokes imagery is masterful. And there is, this is the first book in a duology, so the second one is going to be coming soon, and you'll be needing it, because the way that this book ends is a crime in the best way. And with that, we've come to the end. What is that? Oh, I still have one more. Is there a book that I've forgotten to mention? A certain book that was my most anticipated read of the year / of all time until the next one. Yeah, that's right. You thought I was gonna go a video without mentioning Brandon Sanderson. Okay, I'm sorry for that. That was bad. We're moving on. Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson is the last book on my top 10. It's the top of the top 10. When I was talking about the book that was number 1, this is the book that's number 1. It's probably my new favorite book of all time. So yeah, very, very high bar this is set. Rhythm of War is book 4 in the Stormlight Archive. And if you have not heard of the Stormlight Archive, I have so many videos on my channel. I will link them down below. But yeah, what do I say about the series? It's an epic fantasy series. It's set in a world ravaged by storms. This series is beautiful and relatable. The characters deal with very real mental illnesses in probably the best way that I've seen mental illness depicted in books that I've read. Like Kaladin deals with depression, and that's very relatable to me. And Shallan, I don't want to spoil things, but just know, if you want to read a damn good book, read The Way of Kings, which is the first book in this series. But this book, I think, was just it was just perfect in so many ways. It started off with foot on the pedal, going 100 miles an hour, and it just did not stop. And this book is 1,200 pages long. So that's kind of insane. Like, I couldn't breathe through most of it. I ended up sobbing over parts of this. Yeah, this book broke me in ways that I don't think I'll be ready to talk about for a while. But that's okay. Just overall, there's so much like love in my heart for this series and these characters. I'm so grateful that they're a part of my life, because honestly, like, just these books have always come out at a time in my life when I've needed them the most, and the themes and the messages and just everything is exactly what my soul needs. And this book was what my soul needed in 2020, and for that, it will forever remain the best book of 2020 and my best book of all time, my favorite book of all time, until the next Stormlight book comes out. So, and that's it. That is my top 10 list from the year of our Lord 2020. You know, as shitty as last year was, I did read some amazing books. Honestly, books kept me sane last year because I was inside what I was reading. That's like all I was doing. So, yeah, and this year is off to a pretty good start too. There's already a couple books that I've read that are going to appear on my end of the year list, and that's crazy because it's January. But yeah, so until next year, I will see you guys. Well, I mean, I'll see you guys weekly on my channel, duh. But you won't get another best of list until the end of the year. Maybe I'll do a midpoint. I'll do like a top 10 from the first 6 months, just because from what I've seen, there's gonna be a lot of good books this year. So I don't know if I could narrow it down to just 10. I was lucky. I cheated. I included my honorable mentions. But yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, as always. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment below, what were your top 10 or 15 or 20 or however many number you choose. What were your favorite books? Please let me know, because I need to add to my ever-growing TBR. And if you want to see more videos like this, please don't forget to subscribe and go follow me on my socials. And with that being said, I'll see you next time. Bye.